Thank you very much for that lovely introduction, and thank you, Rajiv, for your words, but also your activities that have made all this possible. So I also feel privileged to be here, and I want to say a few things which, when I was thinking about what to say, I said, well, I've got a lot of words, and the words have meanings, but I think if I had to etch everything I want to say, it would be there's a hierarchy in Qumran. What I see is a hierarchy of activity from the very small to the very large, from the very beginning to advanced, but there's no hierarchy of value. There's a hierarchy of activity from the youngest to the oldest, from beginning to advanced, but there's no hierarchy of value because all people are important and all people are included. And so when I was talking with Professor Miriam about what to say today, I said, it seems to me that what Rajiv has done is what we all try to do, to start small but think big. So start small is what he has done, but he's thinking big in terms of not just this project of Qumran, but the entire world. And so he's used languages like Vasudeva Kutumbakam from the Sanskrit to describe the whole world as one family. And he's also taken this phrase from my book, The Islamic Cosmopolitan Spirit, where I had thought about longing and belonging, but never thought of it as compared to this Sanskrit term. And so what Rajiv has done is to transfer me from being his teacher to being my teacher, and I'm his student. So again, there's a hierarchy, but there's a hierarchy of order, but no hierarchy of value. So I value you, Rajiv, as much as my teacher is my student, and I hope that you can see me as both your teacher, but also your student. So I want to say that there are many languages. There's Greek, Latin, Sanskrit. There's Persian, Arabic, Turkish. There's Hindi, Urdu, Bengali, just to mention a few. But all these languages and all these different backgrounds participate in Qumran. So Qumran is a space occupied by human beings as they interact with each other. Qumran is not an isolated part or a single part or a separate part of the world. It's the entire world interacting. And what Rajiv has done that I think improves or expands the notion of Qumran is to call Qumran green. It's not simply a Muslim green. It's not simply a green that echoes one country or one part of the world. It's not the Saudi flag that's flying here. It's Qumran green as meaning many things. And I just want to explore what that means for me. So Qumran green, as defined by Rajiv and those who work with him, some of whom will be honored today, people who share his labor, but also his ideals. Qumran is a multiply dimensioned initiative. Qumran is an initiative with many dimensions. It's obviously launched from Istanbul, but it extends from the Bosphorus to Bihar. From the Bosphorus to Bihar, and through the internet, it has partners throughout the world. So I hope you will accept this as my own geographic description of your work, Rajiv, that you go from the Bosphorus to Bihar, but through the internet, you have partners throughout the world. And I think we have to say something else which is implicit in everybody's mind, but we don't often say it. It's extraordinary that this initiative began during COVID, at a time when we had a worldwide pandemic, when it wasn't possible for many people to see each other in person. I myself haven't seen Rajiv in person for a couple of years, but I remember vividly the time when I did see him in person. But we've still been able to communicate via the internet despite the impediment of COVID. And I think what is most important to recognize about the initiative that we have here today in Qumran Green is that it began during COVID, and inshallah, we should say, it will survive COVID and become a great force after we've been through and beyond this terrible, terrible pandemic. So let me say how I see Qumran as a hierarchy of activity, but not a hierarchy of value. I really am constantly inspired by the Qumran Green perspective, what I call the UGP, which, as Rajiv has said, aspires to, first of all, empower women, to encourage communication between all people, to inspire humanity at large. But also, I think the critical thing that makes it green is to respect the environment. And I'm going to come back to that at the end of my few remarks. So in my view, the green that's in Qumran green perspective is not arbitrary, it's not whimsical, it's deliberate, it's foundational. So without that, you would not have the rest of the program. So it begins with UGP or Qumran green perspective. But then it also has Qumran Green School, which has only begun a year ago in 2021. The whole idea of Qumran Green perspective began in the middle of 2020. So it really, if I can call this, it's a child of the pandemic. It came up within the pandemic, and hopefully it will outlive and grow beyond the pandemic. But it began in July 2020. Qumran Green School began in 2021. It began in this little place called Jayanagar. So you start small, but you think big. And now it's encompassing the Bauhaus model and encompassing also the Barzakh logic, which I have tried to develop in my book on the ICP, or Islamic Cosmopolitan Spirit. So the four areas of teaching are reading children's books, children's art and painting, children's music and theater, but also a cafe that encourages and facilitates the mingling of younger people with those who are older. And so this idea that there is a Qumran Green perspective as the overarching theory or outlook or goal, and there's Qumran Green School, which is the first instance of it, the first idea of it. So the green of Qumran Green School reflects the green of UGP or Qumran Green perspective, but it's different. It's a color of growth. So the Qumran Green School is growth, the color of growth in social, intellectual, adaptive skills for young people, but also for those who are older. And now it's also included a third initiative, which is what I call the UARA. The UARA stands for the Qumran Academic Research Association, which is for older people. In fact, it's for people who have a degree, at least a bachelor's degree, whether AB or BS, but in some cases an MA or even a PhD. And all these people who are associated with UARA are to pursue a civilizational cosmopolitan approach at the university level. So Qumran Green School starts at the very youngest level, and then UARA goes to the most senior level, but all through education. And it's through UARA that I want to introduce something which I have not discussed with Rajiv, but some of you may have heard of it. I would like to suggest the UARA, the Qumran Academic Research Association, that the green here is the green of the Anthropocene age. So the Anthropocene age, for those who don't know it, is what now many people think we are living in. It's the current geologic age, which is both a challenge because of the environment, but it's also an opportunity because of the internet and education, such as Rajiv has proposed through the Qumran Green Initiative. So what is the Anthropocene age? It's looking at all of humanity. It's taking this slogan, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, and also the Barzakh logic of belonging and belonging, and it's saying that all human beings have to be considered as a whole, not just separate classes, not just separate groups, certainly not separate nations or separate regions, but we have to think of humanity as the entire planet. And we have to think about what it means to have biodiversity in our planet. So the Anthropocene age means recognizing the whole, and the whole is not the part, it includes several parts, but also we have to engage the contradictions of our time. And so what is the contradiction? The contradiction is that we are divided by nations, that there is a belonging to different places, that there is, in a sense, a divided world, whether it's divided by geography or by religion or by political allegiance. But there's also a human collectivity which is the longing, the greater longing to go beyond who we are, to juxtapose differences, not to eliminate or erase differences, but to juxtapose differences that cannot be denied or reduced, but to combine our differences. Instead of eliminating them, to combine and grow from our differences for the benefit of others. And the others are not just other humans, they're also other creatures who share the land and the sea with us. Again, from Bihar to the Bosphorus, from Asia to America to Africa, but also from the Arctic to the Antarctic. And many people don't think about these two regions as the North and South Pole as part of the world. But as we enter the Anthropocene age, the two poles, the North and South Pole, become a larger part of the whole that we have to think about as we look at the 21st century. So I want to end by saying that I think one of the most imaginative and necessary elements of the Umran Green perspective and the Umran Green School and the Umran Green Initiative and UARA is to have an emphasis on languages. The several languages, the languages of different communities, of different parts of the world, but also the language of ethical responsibility. So there's a language of ethics that cuts across all the different parts, that encompasses all creatures. So it's a language that we are not in this world for gain or for pain, but we are in this world for compassion and justice. There is a hope that lives through us, but also beyond us. It lives through our lives and labor, and we align with exemplars, and I couldn't have a speech like this and mention Umran without mentioning Kabir, that we have exemplars like Kabir and Gandhi, but also like Biruni and Imam Hussein, but also like Riverbend and Ahrimani. For those who don't know, there are two people I mentioned in my book. One is an Iraqi activist, the other is an Achinese or Indonesian artist. All of these people, men and women, have preceded us, but they also inspire us and they also guide us. So thank you, Rajiv, for this opportunity. Thank you for your labor, and thank you for all the people, including, I must say, in preparing for this, I realized that there's more than one Kumar that we have to remember. And if he's not your brother, I'm going to really be surprised that Ram Sachin Kumar is not somehow related to you, because in looking at all things, I said, who has done all this IIT? Who has done this wonderful network thing? I said, it's a Kumar, but it's not Rajiv, it's Ram Sachin Kumar. So I want to thank not only Rajiv, but the person behind him, who I think is his brother, who has made all this possible.
Yeah, he's
so thank you again, both Rajiv and Ram.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for such acknowledgement and inspiration, as we all are eternally grateful.